You did it this morning. Before you even got out of bed, before you brushed your teeth, before you made coffee, before you said a word to another human being, you reached for your phone. Maybe you told yourself you were just checking the time, but then you were in your messages, then your notifications, then a video someone sent you at 2 a.m. that you absolutely did not need to watch at 7 a.m. 10 minutes gone, 20. And somewhere in the back of your mind, a quiet voice asked, "Why do I keep doing this?" The answer is not what you think. It is not laziness. It is not weakness. It is not even the apps. Not exactly. The real answer goes back hundreds of thousands of years to a version of you that had no phone, no screen, no electricity, a version of you that was trying very hard not to get eaten. Your brain was built for a world that no longer exists. That is the uncomfortable truth at the center of this. The brain you are using right now, the one scanning these words, the one that checked your phone 17 times today, is almost identical to the brain your ancestors used to survive the African savannah. And that ancient brain had one job above all else, and never miss anything important. Psychologists call it novelty seeking, neuroscientists call it the dopamine reward loop, but what it really is a survival system. A system so powerful, so deeply wired into you that a trillion-dollar industry has learned exactly how to hijack it. Here is how it works. Your brain releases dopamine not when you get a reward, but when you expect one. This distinction matters more than almost anything else in modern psychology. In 2001, neuroscientist Wolfram Schultz published research that fundamentally changed how scientists understand motivation. What Schultz found was that dopamine spikes happen in anticipation, before the reward arrives, not after. Your brain is not celebrating what you got. It is gambling on what you might get. Now think about what happens when you pick up your phone. You do not know what is in your notifications. You do not know if someone replied to your message. You do not know if something important happened while you were asleep. And that uncertainty, that gap between picking up the phone and seeing what is there, is exactly when your dopamine fires. Every single time. And your ancestors had the same system. But their version was tuned to scan the horizon for movement, to listen for sounds that were out of place, to notice when something in the environment had changed. Because in their world, a change in the environment could mean food, or danger, or another human who needed help or posed a threat. Missing that change could cost you your life. Psychologist B.F. Skinner discovered in the 1950s what he called variable ratio reinforcement. He was studying pigeons, but what he found applies to every brain with a dopamine system, including yours. When rewards are unpredictable, when you cannot tell whether pressing a lever will give you something or nothing, the behavior becomes almost impossible to stop. The unpredictability itself becomes the engine. Slot machines are built on this exact principle. So is every social media feed ever designed. Your phone is a slot machine. Every time you pull it out, you are pulling a lever. Sometimes there is something good. Sometimes there is nothing. Sometimes there is something that makes you feel vaguely bad. And yet your hand reaches for it again. Not because you are weak, because you are human, because you have the most novelty-seeking, reward-anticipating, uncertainty-processing brain ever evolved on this planet. And it is encountering a technology designed by rooms full of people who understand exactly how that brain works. Let that sit for a moment. In 2017, former Google design ethicist Tristan Harris testified before the United States Senate. He described how every notification timing, every red badge number, every infinite scroll was not accidental. These were deliberate design choices, reverse-engineered from behavioral psychology, built to trigger the same ancient circuits your ancestors used to survive. He called the smartphone the first technology in human history designed from the ground up to capture and hold human attention indefinitely. Your ancestors never had to fight to put down the horizon. But here is what makes this even stranger. The checking behavior is not just about reward. It is also about something deeper, social monitoring. You are a profoundly social species. For the vast majority of human history, being excluded from your group was not an inconvenience. It was a death sentence. Humans who lost their tribe lost access to food, shelter, protection, and reproduction. The fear of social exclusion is not metaphorical in your brain. It activates the same neural circuits as physical pain. Researcher Naomi Eisenberger at UCLA ran a study in which participants were excluded from a simple virtual ball tossing game. Brain imaging showed that social rejection lit up the anterior cingulate cortex, the same region that processes physical pain. Being left out genuinely hurts your brain the same way a cut hurts your body. And so the part of you that checks whether anyone replied to your message, whether your post got any likes, whether anyone noticed you, that part is not being vain. That part is checking for signs of social survival. Your phone has become the tribal campfire. It is where your people are, and your ancient brain, the brain that catastrophizes about being cut off from the group, will not let you walk away from it for long. There is a number that circulates in digital wellness research. On average, people check their phones between 96 and 150 times per day. That is roughly once every 6 to 10 minutes of waking life. Some researchers have clocked certain users at over 300 checks in a single day. Not 300 hours, 300 separate pickups, unlock gestures, and screen checks in the span of one day. When you average it out, many people spend over 4 hours a day on their phone, not doing anything in particular, just checking. Think about what else you could do with 4 hours. Now, here is the twist that most conversations about phone addiction miss entirely. The problem is not the phone. The problem is the mismatch. You are an ancient creature living in an engineered environment. Your brain developed its novelty-seeking circuitry in a world where novel things were rare and genuinely important. A rustle in the tall grass was worth your full attention. A stranger approaching your camp required you to stop everything and assess. Your dopamine system calibrated itself for a world where most moments were quiet, repetitive, and predictable, and rare moments of novelty carried real meaning. Now you live in a world where novelty is infinite and artificially manufactured. Your notification feed never ends. There is always something new to check, always another update, always another message. Your brain, designed to seek novelty until the novelty was processed, has found a novelty machine that never runs out. So the seeking never stops. And what happens to a system that never gets to stop? It gets exhausted, it gets anxious, it loses the ability to tolerate silence, stillness, or uncertainty. Research published in Science in 2014 found that many people would rather give themselves mild electric shocks than sit alone with their thoughts for 15 minutes. 15 minutes of quiet, no phone, no book, no stimulus, was psychologically more uncomfortable than pain. Your ancestors sat around fires for hours in the dark. They lay in grass and watched clouds. They spent days crossing terrain in near silence. They had the capacity, the trained practice, default capacity for stillness. You have inherited their brain, but not their practice. The reason you cannot stop checking your phone is not a character flaw. It is a collision between 200,000 years of evolved neurology and a 40-year-old technology that was reverse engineered to exploit it. The same drive that made your ancestors the most successful social species on the planet, the relentless scanning, the sensitivity to change, the hunger for information about the group, has been captured and redirected into a glass rectangle in your pocket. The slot machine knows exactly which lever your ancient brain cannot resist. Tonight, when you reach for your phone before bed and tell yourself it will just be a quick check, you will know exactly what is happening. You are not checking your phone. A 200,000-year-old survival system is checking the horizon. It just has not figured out yet that the horizon is not out there anymore. It is in your pocket, engineered to glow.